NBT World, a vision of Thailand.
So the U.S. might want to tax Thailand more, or levy more tariffs on Thailand in the future in order to reduce that trade deficit. So there is, again, that risk that Thai exporters might face.
Welcome to Thailand Today. In this episode, we delve into the economic outlook for 2024 and the forecast for 2025. Joining us is the Director of TDRI Economic Intelligence Service, who will shed light on opportunities, challenges, and strategies that Thailand could use to remain globally competitive for this year.
Swadika.
Thank you for joining us again. Well, let's talk about the economy of Thailand in 2024 first. How are we doing?
In 2024, we recovered from 2023 because our GDP or economic value will probably grow by around 2.7, 2.8% this year compared to 1.9% last year. So it's an improvement from last year, but it's still not a very high growth rate as you might notice. So mainly it's because in the first 5 months of the year, the government's budget was not dispersed due to the delay in the budget process. So that was one of the reasons that had pulled back, especially government investments in the economy in the first 5 months of the year. And of course, there was also issues with the slow growth of domestic demand in the country because of high debt levels by households. So private consumption or household consumption this year had also slumped quite a bit. So we saw numbers of car sales or home sales also dipping down this year. So I think those are the two main reasons that the economy wasn't able to grow by more than 2.7 or 2.8% this year.
What about the government's policy like the 10,000 baht digital money? Does it help at all?
Well, it does a little bit. It does because actually the 10,000 baht was handed out in cash, but it wasn't the full-blown program that was originally envisioned, right? So the first tranche was actually given in October to those who hold what we call the social welfare card. So these are people who actually are very low income. So they are eligible for the social welfare card, and the 10,000 baht that was given in the first tranche was to these 14 million people, including some disabled as well. So that actually helped definitely the lives of those individuals because to begin with, their incomes are quite low. To be able to hold the social welfare card, you have to have an income, annual income, not more than 100,000 baht. All right, but actually 80% of those holding the social welfare card have incomes less than 30,000 baht a year. So they're actually very low income. So 10,000 baht means a lot to them. Right. So in terms of raising their welfare, it does help. But if you look at the impact on the overall economy, it might not be a lot because, again, the number of people who were given the handout is only 14 million. It wasn't the 50 million that was originally envisioned. And also because part of the money, because it's cash, so part of the money that's given to these households are used to service their debts as well. So the actual consumption by these households are not a lot to begin with. So yes, it does help, but it's not a lot. Maybe it would add 0.1% to our GDP growth this year.
Mm-hmm. And which industry performed best in 2024?
Well, in 2024, I think it's similar to 2023. It's still the more sort of high tech digital businesses that ride on the wave of the digital economy, so like e-commerce, right, or anything to do with logistics that is related to e-commerce has done well, but also because our exports have grown this year as well, right? This year, our exports in US dollar value should expand by around 4% year on year. So that also helps industries that produce for exports and also the logistics that go with exports as well. For example, food products are doing very well, partly because of exports and partly because of the tourism rebound in Thailand as well. So anything that has to do with the tourism business is doing quite well. For example, department stores or food products, services, hotels. These perform quite well.
Embark on a journey to Thailand, where MICE tourism blends with majestic beauty. Host your events in world-renowned venues, set against the backdrop of our stunning natural and urban landscapes. Innovate amidst tradition with tailor-made solutions enhancing every aspect of your business gatherings. Sustainability is at the heart of our MICE industry, protecting our cherished environment and empowering local communities. Beyond the conference room, Thailand awaits. Explore captivating beaches, ancient temples, and dynamic urban centers. Choose Thailand for your MICE events, where professional excellence meets the spirit of adventure. Thailand MICE, where business meets beauty and innovation. Explore sports tourism in Thailand, where tradition and thrill unite. Immerse yourself in Muay Thai, the art of 8 limbs, and witness the power in historic Bangkok stadiums. Experience the agility of Sepak Takraw, reflecting Thailand's athletic spirit. Beyond these, Thailand's vibrant sports scene, from surfing to marathon, awaits your participation. Discover the passion and culture of Thailand through its cherished sports. Your adventure begins here.
NBT World, a vision of Thailand.
Talking about export, people are much worried about President Donald Trump's policy. How do you think about that?
Well, it's
with Thailand.
With Thailand, it is worrisome.
It's worrying, right?
It is worrisome because his main, policy platform is to reduce the U.S. trade deficit with most countries, right? Not only with China, but with every country that trades with the U.S., which means that he would try to raise tariffs against imports from countries that the U.S. imports from, including Thailand as well. So in his campaign, President-elect Donald Trump has announced that he might raise tariffs to China up to 60%, right, 60. For other countries like Thailand, it might be 10 to 20% additional tariffs. So that, again, would definitely affect trade around the world because countries will be able to trade less with the U.S. and that will affect their economies. So they might also that in turn import less from other countries as well. So it's not only that Thai exports to the U.S. might be affected, but Thai exports to other countries might also be affected because their economies are not going to do very, very well. But again, I think the coin has two sides. In the short run, meaning next year, if the U.S. raised tariffs on China by let's say like 50% or even 60% and raise tariffs on Thailand by 10 or 20%, then the gap between the price of Thai products and Chinese products will be pretty wide because China will be taxed much more. So there might be scope for Thai products to still be exported to the U.S. To replace some of the Chinese products as well, as we saw in Trump 1.0.
Right.
In 2018 when President Trump raised tariffs with China, but he didn't raise them with Thailand. But back then, tariffs
Thailand was in the list as well, right?
Thailand was on the watch list, but we were not taxed heavily. Our tariffs didn't increase, but the U.S. increases tariffs on China. So at that time, Chinese products imported to the U.S. as the share of U.S. imports fell, but Thai imports, imports from Thailand, by the U.S. rose. So we did benefit from the previous trade war. But this time, of course, in the short run, as I mentioned, we might benefit. But in the long run, I still see that I think the impact will be more negative on Thailand, as I mentioned to you, and perhaps because as you mentioned, Thailand has a surplus with the trade surplus with the U.S. We're now number 12 on the list of countries with trade surplus with the U.S. Number 1 is China, number 2 is Mexico, number 3 is Vietnam, and Thailand is number 12. But still. President-elect Trump does not want to see deficits with countries, so the U.S. might want to tax Thailand more, or levy more tariffs on Thailand in the future in order to reduce that trade deficit. So there is again, that risk that Thai exporters might face.
And what kind of measures or strategies would you recommend to exporters or entrepreneurs to prepare for such scenario?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite a tough next few years for especially to the U.S. market. So I'd like to divide my my suggestion into two parts, right? So in one part, if Thai exporters were still to export to the U.S., right? So, of course, one of the things is to see which products we can replace Chinese products in the U.S. But second is also equally important to note that the content, right, the production content of the goods that will be exported to the U.S. must have a lot of Thai content. So, for example, I would say like solar panels, right? The U.S. was actually scrutinizing solar panels, imports from Thailand because they feel that most of the components came from China. So the local content was low, but the Chinese content was high in the solar panels that were exported from Thailand to the U.S. So we have to be careful in the future. If we were to export to the U.S., we might need to increase the local content. So that's one part. But on the other hand, I think Thai exporters may also need to diversify more because at the moment, the U.S. market is the largest export market for Thailand. It accounts for around 18% of our total export value. So we might need to diversify more to other countries, to new markets, for example, to the Middle East, right, or to Latin America, so that the dependency of Thai exports on the U.S. will be reduced in case there's any risk that arises in the U.S. market.
Right. What kind of products we export there the most?
To the U.S.
Yes,
well, actually, we export parts. We export a lot of parts and intermediate goods. So parts of electronics or parts of solar panels, and also some of car parts. Those are things, including jewelry as well, that we export to the U.S.
How do you think it would impact global trade atmosphere?
Of course, it's a negative impact on the trade atmosphere because as I mentioned, once the U.S. raised tariffs on different countries, we do expect countries to retaliate as well, right? So, for example, if the U.S. raised tariffs on China by, let's say, 40, 50%, China will probably retaliate by raising their tariffs on American, goods also maybe by 20 or 30 or 40%. Similarly, the EU might also retaliate the U.S. because the U.S. is going to raise tariffs on all trading partners if President-elect Trump is going to follow his what he said in his campaign. So there will be a trade war, right? And as I mentioned, when there's a trade war that is on a global scale, that means that the volume of trade growth will be very small or even a contraction. So that's not good for different economies because trade is where incomes flow into different countries. Especially for Thailand, which is a small open economy, we rely a lot on trade. about 55% of our economic value each year comes from exports of goods only, not even services yet. If you count services, it's even more than that, right? And we rely on imports as well. Around 50% of our economic value or GDP are imports. So we rely a lot on trade. So if trade is disrupted, then of course Thailand's economy will be affected both on the export side and the import side as well.
Right. During his last term, Thailand was benefited a lot by the fact that many factories shifted locations to Thailand, right? Mm-hmm. What about this year? Would it happen in that kind of way as well?
Exactly. It will happen, and it has already started since 2018 at Trump 1.0, and it seems like it's now actually accelerating. Mm-hmm. We can see that over the past 2 years, right, there has been a lot of applications to the Board of Investments of Thailand, and the Board of Investments has approved for the last 2 years. I think it was like a 10-year record high each year for the Board of Investments approvals, because there are so many companies from both sides of the camp, from China, right, from from those who are in the Chinese camp, but also countries that are in the U.S. camp, like the U.S., EU, Japan, Taiwan, are also investing in Thailand. So I think by Thailand positioning itself as being neutral, we have attracted both sides of the relocation from their own countries or from China here into Thailand as well. So as I said, the coin has two sides. So on the trade side, it might not be very positive. But on the investment side, we're actually seeing a lot of foreign direct investments flowing into Thailand over the last, well, at least the BOI approvals have shot up, and that means that in the next 2 years or so, there will be these investments and production, mainly for exports.
Right. That's one of strategies that you would recommend for Thailand to be globally competitive, right? To attract investments.
Yes. So when I think about this, I think this kind of mega relocation on a global scale doesn't happen often, right? I think it's like once every 40 years. The last time when there was a mega relocation was in the 80s when Japan moved their production to Southeast Asia, especially to Thailand. So this comes every 40 or 50 years. So we have to be really ready to attract, because if we miss this boat, it's the next, we have to wait for the next 40 or 50 years. So I think we need to, as you mentioned, really be prepared by increasing our competitiveness as well. So what are the things that foreign direct investors look for, right, when they decide where to relocate? Of course, one thing they look for is, of course, in the geopolitics, tension that is around right now, they look for countries that are friendly to them, right? And Thailand has shown that we are friendly to everyone. So that is one point. I think why some investors have decided to come to Thailand. But of course, not only that, right? It's whether we have enough clean energy, right? Because that's what many multinational companies are looking for to reduce their carbon footprint. Or is digital connectivity, is the internet stable and strong, and widely covered here, which Thailand has a very strong 5G connection in relation relative to other ASEAN countries. I think we're one of the best, maybe just second to Singapore. So that's something that we have to keep up. On the energy side, I just mentioned earlier as well, we have to make sure that our energy is cleaner, right? We have 100% renewable energy for certain industries like data centers that require 100% renewable energy, and so these are very important to keep us competitive, and of course skills. Right? When investors come, of course it's not in the labor intensive industries anymore. When I look at the foreign direct investments that are coming to Thailand in the next 2 years, the ones that got the Board of Investment approvals, they're mostly in the more high-tech, the new industries, such as electronics, right? The printed circuit boards. They are in electrical vehicles, right? They are in biotechnology products like bioplastics, biofuels, or food for the future, plant-based proteins and things like that. So these are all new industries which has higher technology, not so labor-intensive, but they still need skilled labor to work with the machines. So it's a different set of skills that these investors now require from countries that they invested, including Thailand. So I think skills upgrading is still very important if we were to attract foreign investment into Thailand as well.
Are our human resources ready?
Well, I think it's still in the works because what I've observed is that when companies come, like when electrical vehicles, now companies come, it's very big and they want like 6,000. Right, workers who are educated at least vocational level to be able to work with the machines, the robotic arms, things like that. We don't have enough, to be honest. We don't have enough at the moment. But what we're trying to do now is that instead of training everybody from the start, from youth, we're trying to retrain or upskill those who are already in the industry to be able to work with the new technologies, the new machines. So it's in the works right now. I know that the Board of Investment has now made some memorandum of understanding and collaboration with many universities in order to upgrade or reskill those who are already in these industries to be able to work in a higher level of technology as well. So I think it's still in the works, and we have another, let's say, 2 years before these investments actually are ready to start production. So we're still working on it.
Right.
Welcome to Thailand, the land of smiles, where cutting-edge business thrives amid centuries-old traditions. Thailand stands at the crossroads of innovation and heritage in the heart of Southeast Asia. Step away from the boardroom and into paradise. Rejuvenate on our sun-kissed beaches or explore enchanting rainforests. Experience seamless travel with convenient, swift cross-border journeys that meet global standards. Delight in our rich history, savor the flavors of our renowned cuisine, and immerse yourself in the vibrant tapestry of Thai culture. Thailand, a harmonious blend of business and leisure, tradition and innovation, waiting to be discovered. Thailand awaits. Your adventure begins here. If you want to experience a variety of foods, come here to Thailand, where the art of food transcends taste. Experience the fiery Massaman curry, the zesty Tom Yum Goong, and the refreshing crunch of Somtam. Celebrated worldwide, Thai cuisine is a symphony of spicy, sour, sweet, and salty, crafted to perfection. And the flavors of the food, you will also experience Thai culture through a variety of dishes that maintain the unique characteristics of different regions in Thailand. Begin your journey to experience unforgettable culinary adventures here in Thailand.
The Kingdom of Thailand has so much going on, so much information, so little time to digest. With Newsline, it's all about facts and accuracy. Stay up to date. Stay connected with Newsline on NBT and NBT World.
Talking about relocation, we already see the result of foreign goods and services penetrate a lot in Thai market. And some local entrepreneurs complain that they are very much affected. How do you think we could find a balance in such a situation?
Right. So with relocations coming, into Thailand, of course, the other side is there are also a lot of Chinese imports, right, that are coming in, and I think these two are related as well because, when Chinese investors come to invest in Thailand, of course, they would buy parts, right, and raw materials from China because that's where they know best and they have suppliers there. So I think in the future. We would only see more and more imports of Chinese products. And it's not only by the Chinese investors in Thailand, but because when I look at the data back 2 to 3 years, it has actually already started to accelerate. Why? Because even Thai companies, right, prefer to buy Chinese intermediate goods and equipments and machineries because the quality is fine and the price is much lower, right? Yeah. So again, the coin has two sides, right? Actually, businesses in Thailand that uses raw materials and equipments have benefited from the cheaper Chinese products. But of course, the companies that produce the exact same products that compete with China, those are the ones that are being hurt, right? Steel, plastics, or even textiles, they're being hurt because it's a direct competition with China. So I think in the future, it's going to be very difficult to say we'll stop Chinese imports, right, from coming in. We might just be able to buy some time or delay, by using, like standards, which is reasonable because imports should meet the standards, right, for Thai consumers. So that will slow down the imports, but I don't think it can stop, imports from China. So if I were to recommend, I would recommend that think of ways to use the Chinese imports, the Chinese raw materials and equipments to your advantage, right? If it can help lower your cost of production, so instead of producing the exact same products to compete with the Chinese products, let's use them to add value, right, to our own, products, be innovative, and we would able to reduce costs and also sell goods that are different from Chinese products and at a higher price as well.
Do you think the government should come up with certain policy as well?
Well, I think what the government has done so far is the most that can be done. I'll tell you what has been done. Right? One is the government has now collected VAT, value added tax, on Chinese products as well. But again, it increases the price by 7%. But usually Chinese products are much cheaper than that. So even increasing by 7% would not make Chinese products more expensive than products produced here in Thailand. So it helps, but not very much. The second measure that was used is, as I mentioned, to use standards, whether it be health standards or safety standards, to check on Chinese imports or products that they meet the Thai standards, right? So, for example, the Ministry of Finance has just announced that for all goods from China that are coming through the border trade, all the containers should be open. It won't be a random system anymore. We'll open every single container to check every product.
Right.
So that would slow down, right? Would slow down the flow of imports, but it doesn't stop them from coming in. So I think this is the most that we can do, because if we were to, let's say, erect tariffs, for Chinese products, then the risk is that China might retaliate. Right? And China is Thailand's second largest export market.
Right.
So if China retaliates and raises tariffs on Thai products and instead import from Vietnam instead, for example, then of course Thailand stands to lose a lot as well. So we need to balance, as you mentioned in the beginning.
We're kind of stuck in between, right?
Exactly. So that's why my recommendation is that I don't think we can go against the tide. So why don't we use the tide? Why don't we surf it? We surf on the tide, and make ourselves different and add more value to those Chinese imports as our inputs.
Right. I hope the tide is not too strong.
I hope
too high.
And I hope that the time that's being bought so far and maybe into the future a little bit will make Thai entrepreneurs realize that they really have to adjust and to adapt to this high tide.
So let's talk about 2025. How do you foresee our economy?
Well, I think the Thai economy will still keep growing in 2025. Again, not a lot, maybe 2.5 to 3%. Growth, about that. One of the reasons is, of course, because of what we discussed, the trade war that will happen probably early next year when President-elect Trump becomes the actual president, because he can sign the presidential orders right away, on the first day that he becomes president, to raise tariffs on different countries. So I think the trade war will come very, very soon, as soon as he becomes president. So that would slow down trade, and that will affect Thai exports as well. Like, for example, this year Thai exports will probably grow by 4% in US dollar terms. Next year, maybe it could grow by only 1 to 2%. All right. So again, it will affect the Thai economy. But of course, we're still optimistic in the sense that tourism will recover, will keep recovering. Right. This year we'll probably end with 36 million international tourists. Next year, probably around 40 million. So we're going to go back to our pre-COVID number of tourists. And of course, the government budget can be dispersed next year for the full year, unlike this year. So we will see that help as well. There will be, I think the government wants to disperse the second and third tranche of the 10,000 baht cash handout to stimulate consumption a little bit as well, right? So that will help. And also the private investments that I mentioned that has received the Board of Investment approvals will start coming into Thailand next year as well. So I still see there are many opportunities, but of course the risks are very high, right? Especially on the trade side, on the competition from the Chinese products if Thai entrepreneurs cannot adjust in time, right? Or the fact that they could be a spike in commodity price because there is tension in the Middle East, for example. So oil prices, gas prices might rise, right? So again, those are the risks that are foreseeable, but it's uncertain and unpredictable, which is why it's going to be a very challenging year next year.
Okay, let's hope for a positive outcome then.
Right.
Thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.